Welcome to 28.5, where we explore a unique and authentic perspective on the women's game, break down upcoming matchups, and discuss the latest news and trends in women's basketball. We are your hosts. I'm Sydney Story, and I played at the University of Tennessee under Pat Summitt.
And I'm Becca Goodman, and I played at the University of Notre Dame under Muffet McGraw. And we're thrilled to have you join us today. Before we jump in, make sure to subscribe so you never miss an episode. And if you enjoy what you hear, be sure to tune in each week and support and share the love. Now let's get started with today's episode.
Hello, everyone. The holiday season is officially upon us. Just celebrated Thanksgiving, so happy Thanksgiving to all of us out there in America. And Black Friday is upon us and a lot of good women's basketball. Becca, you and I were chatting back and forth at how good this season has been so far. What's been some of your take on some of that?
Oh, man, I just want to tell you, I am shocked at how many upsets there's already been. We're still in month one of this season here. This is pretty crazy. I've never seen it. And I remember when we played, right? You always had your dominant teams, they were dominant. Now it just seems like people are coming out, rolling it up, and they're like, let's go. You got a target, I'm gonna get it. And honestly, maybe it's because, if you get an upset, you get some attention and that NIL money. I don't know. But I'm just saying people are playing like their lives depend on it and they're showing out. Period.
Yeah, there is no I'm a true underdog anymore, if you ask me. I
Mm-mm.
mean, we've seen some of these teams that we thought wouldn't even have been close to some of these other teams, and they're hanging with them, if not beating them. And in today's episode, we've got 4 full quarters for you. We are going to walk through a Thanksgiving throwback where Becca and I walk through some of our experience during some of these holiday tournaments. We're going to hit you with a post game analysis like we always like to do. And we are also going to highlight the SEC ACC challenge matchup games, which are coming upon us in the next few days. And those are going to be a ton of fun. And there's a lot of really good ones. So we're excited to highlight those. And then we're going to hit our fourth quarter with what's in the news around women's basketball and women's sports. So a full, fun packed episode ahead.
Let's get started. So, jumping into that first quarter, we're going to talk about our Thanksgiving throwbacks. So, right now, this week, for a lot of college athletes, not everyone, but some that are lucky enough, they always go to a Thanksgiving tournament. It could be the Paradise Jam in the U.S. Virgin Islands, the Cancun Challenge in Mexico, the Cayman Islands Classic, Jamaica, Myrtle Beach. You can even go just to Charleston, South Carolina, Atlantis. Oh man, I've been wanting to go there. But long story short, it's a great time for women's basketball, the coaching staff to get out of Dodge, go somewhere, and it's just a fun time. You do a lot of stuff in the water and on the beach, but also you're prepping and doing scouting report and trying to get ready for the next game. So it's a fun time. It's a cool environment. It reminded me a lot of overseas basketball where your job is to win basketball games and to prep appropriately, but also you get a little fun mixed in there. So just going back to my junior year, we went to the U.S. Virgin Islands. That was an absolute blast. It was the first time I had ever been island hopping, as I'd like to call it, somewhere nice and beachy and warm. For the life of me, I can't remember who we played. Could have looked it up, but didn't. I know we won, and I know I had an absolute blast. It was just something different. Basketball somewhere else, but you're playing, Boston College, or you're playing teams you see in the ACC, SEC. It's just kind of a grab from every conference, and it's whoever wants to sign up, and you get to just go play on an island or, just away for the holidays. It's also awesome because these tournaments that are set up, they know this, so they try to get you a nice meal as well, make it like a big production for Thanksgiving. Some family comes with, like I remember we had a big following at Notre Dame of parents and siblings that came and stayed also at the resort and just were a part of it. Tons of fun, something to do. And honestly, these games that are at these tournaments, I feel like we're getting a preview to March Madness. They're that good. There's been upsets. Sid, did you guys ever go anywhere on those tournaments?
Yeah, my senior year, ironically, we also played in the Virgin Islands tournament, the Paradise Jam. Glad to see that it's still going to this day. I think it's a really fun one. You're down in St. Thomas and it's beautiful weather around Thanksgiving time. And like you said, it's just a chance to get away from campuses and experience something a little bit different while you stay there for a few days, almost like an SEC or an ACC tournament or a Big Ten tournament type feel where you're in the same place and you're playing multiple teams throughout the few days that you're there, except for, like you mentioned, it's a grab bag of teams. You can be playing from any conference that's out there. So that's a lot of fun with this one also. And I think it's a breeding ground for some upsets because you're doing back to back to back scouts and you're preparing for teams maybe you're not familiar with that maybe are in your conference. So you're really having to do a lot of preparation, but there's also the distraction of there's a beautiful beach outside and beautiful weather, right? And you want to try to experience some of that. It's a fun time. I think that these games are a lot of fun to watch on TV. Would be awesome to go to any of these locations over Thanksgiving for all the fans out there that are diehards and want to go watch some good basketball. I think all these tournaments that are out there over Thanksgiving are really good. So it's just a cool time to go watch some basketball, that's for sure. And with that, let's roll into our second quarter, some post-game analysis and some of the top 25 shifts. So let's walk through some of the AP poll and where it stands after the upsets that we saw. And then we're actually going to walk through some of those upsets and some of the analysis from our end. So drum roll, we have a new number one. This is the first time we're really seeing that top 10 shift like it did. So UCLA is now the number one team in the AP poll. Notre Dame slots in at that third spot. We're going to walk through why these teams are moving up like they did. South Carolina drops to 4, USC drops to 6, and we see Iowa join the top 25 at number 22 there. To me, those were some of the big noteworthy moves in the AP poll out of the last week games and really driven by a lot of those upsets. Do you want to take us through the first big one, Notre Dame grad?
I think we should. And we're going to do upsets and then we're going to jump into additional upsets because that's what the holiday season brings. First up, we have Notre Dame, who was ranked 6th at the time. They beat USC, who was 3, 74-61. Now, heading into this game, both teams were 4-0. It was star-studded. Snoop Dogg's there, sporting a Watkins coat. Michael B. Jordan's there. Candace Parker's there. Cheryl Miller's there. I mean, Jason Sudeikis is there, who's, he's a huge women's basketball fan, WNBA and now college. Like, it had everything set up for a great game. And I'm just really glad that we, Notre Dame, showed up and brought it. We were always on the aggressive end. We set the tone. A lot of times when there's a lot of hype around these games, and this is even in regards to football or men's basketball, I always feel like we don't really show up ready to compete and go hard. But this game, Hannah Hidalgo, Olivia Miles, Sonia Citron, Leah Tu King, and Kate Cavall, and everyone else that came in and out off the bench, they came in, and as we would say back in the day, you just hit them in the face, right? It was like an aggressive, just bow. And they did so by really pressuring Juju every time she got the ball, made her life, honestly, hell just to get open shots, even to dribble. There was always 2 people running at her. They switched up defenders a lot. Cass Prosper came in, added length. Sonia stayed on for quite a bit. Hannah was like a fly all over the place, just causing havoc. She just never runs out of energy. And I can't get over her level of love and passion to play defense. You can't really teach defense. You can try, right? You can try to run drills. You can say what expectations are. But if you don't have a kid who's wanting to go on defense all the time, it's just a level of the game that you either have it or you don't. And if you have it, you are Hannah. And Hannah just goes. I have a ton of stats here. I have a ton of stuff we could go over. But just high level, it was really awesome to see Hannah come down the court, kick it across court, Olivia Miles for 3. They came down. We got another steal. Olivia came down the court, skipped it over to Hannah for 3. That caused a quick USC timeout, right? It was, to me, the first quarter, and I'm going to then pass it to you, Sid. It just was Notre Dame firing on all cylinders and bringing the defense, running the ball, getting transition buckets and causing that pressure to make them turn over. And USC stagnant. Juju was forcing a little, but we were putting so much pressure on her. And honestly, I think they just needed to get Kiki inside for some nice post touches because I think they had a mismatch inside. Maybe, Kiki off the drive to get them in the game. Because this just kind of blew up pretty quick, right? Halftime, it was 35-28, but it felt like more. I know that that's a close score for a halftime game, but it just felt like more because it was like pulling teeth for USC to score, and it just seemed a little easier for ND. What'd you think?
Yeah, before the game even started, I tried to think in my mind for both teams, what advantage do they have against their opponent? And to me, I wrote down Olivia Miles and Hannah Hidalgo as Notre Dame's advantage. And granted, Juju's on the other side, right? But when there's 2 versus 1, it's a little bit more difficult for teams to prep and stop that. And then on the USC side, I wrote down Kiki Iriafin. And to me, I didn't really think Notre Dame had a good answer for her on paper.
Yep.
If Kiki wanted to go off, I thought she was very capable of doing that in this game. And we saw glimpses of it, right? She's a really good, strong player, very seasoned, being that 5th-year transfer in from Stanford. But I think that it was the Hannah Hidalgo and Olivia Miles show from the very beginning. First quarter, they go up by 10 points. And to me, I'm like, both these girls are on. Both these girls are trying to take the spotlight. It's going to be very hard for USC to stop them. And I think that was true for most of the game. Like you said, they battled for the full 40 minutes. They played a full 40-minute game. And I think Notre Dame is even more on the map now. When you take on a number 3 USC at home and you beat them like they did, Notre Dame has to be on everyone's radar that when both those guards are on, they are going to be very difficult to stop. I mean, you saw Hannah Hidalgo bring it down one possession, and then the next possession, it's Olivia Miles. They're finding each other. Granted, they take most of the shots for Notre Dame. Over 50%, 53% of the shots that were taken on the Notre Dame side were from those 2. But like I said, there's 2 of them. So in traditional basketball, when we played back in the day, right, Becca, your point guard was more of the distributor. It was a bonus if your point guard could score and be in the action. But in this case, both these girls bring it up and they're looking to score. So you've got Hannah Hidalgo, especially on the defensive end, who gets deflections and then they go. I think we all were excited to see how they were going to play together. And this is, to me, the first time they played somebody who was really good, right? USC was number 3, like I said, ranked higher than them at the time. And to see how they were able to show out against a good team, I think people across the country, like I said, are going, oh, wow, Notre Dame's for real this year. And then let's say one of them are off. You have off nights. It's going to happen. They've got a tough schedule. They've got Texas coming up. They've got UConn coming up. They've got tough schedule in the ACC throughout. They will have some off nights here, but the depth of Notre Dame, and granted, they don't play a lot of their bench right now. There's injuries and whatnot plaguing them right now, but you've got Sonia Citron, who is more than capable of scoring for Notre Dame, right? You saw her step up into more of that role last year. They're calling her a big defensive player, which she is, but we all know that she's also capable of putting some points up.
Yep, definitely.
I think the post play for Notre Dame is really strong right now. I'm a huge King fan.
Yeah.
And Maddie Westbelt, but she comes back, and now Notre Dame has the size down low. Depth might be something that's there. It's hard to tell right now because of the injuries. But once those girls come back, maybe they're deep enough. But do you need to be that deep if Hannah Hidalgo and Olivia Miles are on? Those 2 are real tough to stop right now.
I will say it seems like Notre Dame really has never had a deep bench. Last couple of years, we've really been plagued with injuries of key players. So it's great to see that we have a deeper bench, and I would love to get all of them healthy, right? We still have Liza, who's the transfer from Marquette. She was one of their leading scorers, averaging over 25 points a game. She got injured in the first game. I'd love to see her healthy and back. But as you mentioned, right, Kate Kaval, she's the big post player from Ukraine for Notre Dame. She's so young. I think all of this exposure early on in the season, maybe she's not doing everything 100% up to date, correct, but she's learning. And you can't teach experience. And the best way to learn is through it. So for her to be able to play on this team, start, give valuable minutes, and earn and learn her role, it's only going to help Notre Dame in the postseason because that is a big body to have inside, blocking out consistently. Not only that, I think she was averaging up until this last game, like 5 blocks a game. Like, so she's mobile. She wants to challenge the shot and meet you at the basket. So I think for her, still young, still learning. I mean, she's a freshman. Like I couldn't imagine, right? It's a huge learning curve. The game is so much faster, but I do think that was an area where if USC would have brought in Howell and moved Kiki to the 4, they really could have taken advantage of Kiki driving. I used to watch her play at Stanford last year, and there were games Stanford would be down like 25 points. They would just get it to Kiki all over the court. I'm talking short corner, high post. She'd just catch and go finish. It was and one after and one. That was her. That was what she did. And I feel like USC kind of just kept her in the paint more like a rebounder. And I felt they could have exposed that area and that weakness a bit more. But Notre Dame running and gunning, hauling all the time defensively, flying around and getting in transition. Hannah and Liv together, right? End of the game, they had 44 points, 14 rebounds, and 15 assists. That from 2 players, I don't care if you want to split it right down the middle, or that is something, if they can give you that every night, and then even right a night they're off, distribute to others for them to get theirs, it's going to take pressure off of them. And Sid, what's the best way if you're having an off night to try to get yourself back?
Take it to the rack, try to get to the free throw line, get a couple routine shots in. Yep.
That's exactly what Hannah or Liv would do. They're going to pressure defensively, get it out in transition, go attack the rim, get an easy bucket layup, or get fouled and get to the line. I do want to highlight Kiki had 15 points and 9 boards. And then Juju finished with like a quiet 24, I felt. She really got going in the third quarter. She did finish the game with 24 points, 6 rebounds, and 5 assists. Another great stat line, just needed more help offensively as well. Last thing I wanted to add is Kennedy Smith, who is a freshman for USC. She started all 4 games. She's out indefinitely after having some surgical procedure. So they started Kaylee Heckel, who's another freshman. And USC's coach was like, look, we're losing length and size, but we're gaining pace and scoring. So for them, that was a bit of an adjustment as well. We'll see going forward if Kennedy can come back and then kind of help that, or if, Heckel just takes a larger role.
Yeah, absolutely. I've got that Texas game circled for Notre Dame that's coming up. I think if you watch the film of the USC game, and even some of the commentators were saying that Gottlieb, after that first quarter, was talking about, hey, we need to be more patient on offense. We need ball reversals. You've got to be thinking to yourself, that's exactly what Notre Dame is trying to disrupt. Mm-hmm. They're trying to make you play fast.
Yep,
they're trying to get quick touches, come down on the other end, get a quick bucket. The last thing they want you to do is to slow the ball down and work both sides of the floor, inside, outside game. You didn't see a ton of that. When USC did some of that, they were more productive, certainly. But Notre Dame, they don't want teams to do that. So I thought it was kind of funny because it showed that even coming out of that first quarter, Notre Dame was playing exactly to their game plan.
Yep.
And USC was just, I think, taken out of theirs completely, which that's what you've got to be looking out for when you play Notre Dame coming up here if you're a talented team trying to compete.
Yeah, Gottlieb at halftime, the interview, she was like, I'd like us to do anything that we worked on the whole week, so you could tell they were shook. They were a little off their game. So something to learn from for sure. It's still super early. Sid, I can't believe it's not even December yet, and we're having games like this that we're able to talk about, and the top 10's changing. It's pretty awesome.
Yeah, to me, Notre Dame hands down right now is the best team in the ACC, and USC going to be playing in the Big Ten this year. That's going to be so much fun to watch them. We've been saying that since day one. But now you start watching some of these teams and you're like, oh man, this is going to be throughout this entire season. Mm-hmm. It's going to be an absolute fantastic season with some of these players and matchups. And we're spending so much time talking about Hannah Hidalgo, Olivia Miles, Juju Watkins, Kiki Griffin. It really is the name of the game right now. The players that are getting the press are the ones that are flashy, the ones that are putting points on the board. That's shifted a little bit. There's always been players throughout women's basketball and the history of women's basketball. You can think through 30 of them if you sat down and really walked through it and said, yeah, these players have been like those flashy players that put up a lot of points. But now more than ever with social media and the hype of women's basketball, players are looking to make a splash. They're not looking to share the ball like they used to in some of these old school offenses. And I think watching Notre Dame, watching Juju when the ball is in her hands, that is the more to come, I think, with women's basketball, is they're really trying to be flashy. And I think it's good for the game. You've got Snoop Dogg showing up in a Juju Watkins jacket. I mean, it's great. Like everyone wants that entertainment of players that are going to show up and show out every night. And Caitlin Clark really catapulted a ton of that. Paige
Absolutely.
Beckers has. I mean, so to see other players stepping up and bringing in some of that wow factor, I think is really cool.
Yeah. I'm going to give Skylar some kudos here too, right? So when Skylar was at Notre Dame, we had Little Wayne courtside, Drake. She was like the beginning stages of that flashy, high tempo transition run gun offense. So I think, Aniel was our assistant coach at the time with that. So if it's not broke, don't fix it, right? And these types of games and this style of play, we're never going to run out of things to talk about. That's for sure.
That's for sure. All right, let's jump into the second one. And very similar to the Notre Dame USC game, an upset. So we turn around the next day on Sunday, the 24th, South Carolina, number 1 at the time, loses to UCLA, who was number 5 at the time. So UCLA wins that game 77. South Carolina loses it 62 points. So pretty candid win for UCLA from the jump. UCLA was ready. They wanted this one. UCLA had never beat a number 1 team in program history.
0-20.
0-20. And crazy to think about. And they've got South Carolina, a team that had won 43 games in a row.
Yep.
Now they've got them on their home court. They were the defending champs from last year. I mean, it just set this up for them to go get it. And they did. It was
the last time South Carolina lost was 1,060 days ago. That was in 2023.
Crazy. That's crazy. Yep. They saw the moment and they seized it, which I thought was just really cool. For me, UCLA, obviously Betts she's Betts, right? She had 8 rebounds at the half. I thought she's just that solid anchor for them. Maybe not as flashy on the offensive end this go around, but they had other players that stepped up. London Jones, unbelievable.
Yep, absolutely.
She went 5 for 5 from the 3-point line. When you're getting production from players like London, where they're going to go perfect from the 3-point line, their shooting night was amazing for UCLA. And Dawn talked about it in the presser. We hit a buzzsaw against UCLA. They came out and did things that we usually do to other teams. And she's like, man, it's no fun being on the other end of this. I thought her presser was awesome. I love watching Dawn because she quickly can assess games and she's very open about, here's my reaction about my team. And I just thought it was awesome to see UCLA knock them down on their home court. I think it's good for the game. South Carolina now has that monkey off their back. They can wake up, work on things, and try to get back up there, but they're going to have to fix a lot of things offensively. What's your take on that one?
Yeah. So both teams undefeated. It's a sellout. Jason Sudeikis is back at this game again. Thank you. There's WNBA coaches, there's executives. They're there watching just like they did the USC Notre Dame game. Exactly what you said. I thought South Carolina started off super slow. They were 4 for 17 in the first quarter, 23%. Tessa Johnson coming off the bench, she scored 7 of South Carolina's 10 points of the quarter. Huge minutes for Tessa. And when, Dawn, you mentioned Dawn in the post game, they asked about it and Dawn's like, she's a player, like she's a gamer. What do you want me to do? Like she comes in, she does her job. That's Tessa. So I just love how Dawn doesn't change who she is or how she approaches each player. She just has high expectations and they either meet it or they don't and they move on. There's no, you don't get kudos for doing your job, right? I will say UCLA Betts, I think Dawn's game plan was to slow her down, plug up the lane. As you mentioned, she had 8 rebounds. Most importantly, she was in there on defense to clog up the lane from South Carolina driving to the rack every other possession. We noticed that is a huge shift this game in South Carolina's offense. I felt like, I can't tell you how many times I saw them drive baseline and then go underneath the basket and then kind of had nowhere to go, right? They picked their dribble up and were looking for help because Lauren Betts is in there. She's 6'7". You're not just going to be able to use the rim to shoot around her. She's mobile. I did think another thing that was huge was at halftime, South Carolina had no fast break points and no free throw attempts. Exactly what we just talked about with Notre Dame USC, right? If you're having an off night, you're having trouble scoring, I would have loved to have seen South Carolina. I'm sure everybody who's a South Carolina fan get up in the lanes, try to get those, play disciplined defense to get an easy fast break bucket. Score before Lauren gets down there so you don't have to worry or deal with her. I will say, as you mentioned, London Jones was awesome. Yeah, I just at halftime UCLA was shooting 52% from the field and 55% from the three-point line. It's tough to stay in the game when South Carolina is one and done, and then UCLA goes on the offensive end and they're hitting threes and they're making buckets and they're making it look easy, right? Largest lead at one point for UCLA was 21 points. It was rough. It was rough for sure. I really commend Dawn for just being so calm. I think I would have lost my mind just like a little bit, but she just seems like she's calculating the game as it's going on. And maybe she's even like, yeah, they got us this one. But I'm already thinking of practice the next week, 2 weeks, 3 weeks, how we will never forget this. I just felt like she was taking it all in, and yeah, it was a rough one for sure.
You think about in-game adjustments, and I think back to being a part of the Tennessee team, and we'd be in timeouts, and Pat and the coaches would be telling us, "Hey, so and so is 2 for 2 from the 3-point line. She absolutely does not get another three off. If you're guarding so and so, you're lock and trail, and you're making those in-game scout adjustments." Right? They probably didn't spend a whole lot of time on London and scout. Certainly some. She definitely,
Mm-hmm.
I'm sure, was on there and a part of it. But at that point, when she goes 2 for 2 and then 3 for 3 and then 4 for 4, they could have shut some of that down just by the in-game awareness. And I'm sure it was being said. It's a lot easier said than done.
Mm-hmm. For sure.
But you think about those in-game adjustments that I don't think happened on the South Carolina side, other than the fact that South Carolina won the third and fourth quarter. It
Mm-hmm.
was that first half that killed them. They didn't score for the first 5 minutes. So now you're clawing back. You're on the road. You've got to do things like adjust on shooters and shut people down within game at that point. And I just didn't really see a ton of that from them. I thought offensively, they're missing the Juju Watkins or the Hannah Hidalgo and Olivia Miles duo. They're missing like that flash. They had Carmela Cardoso last year. She was so tough to beat down, though. I think they're really missing that big star player that shows out. I think Pow Pow had 18 points. There were glimpses of it. I think she had a really good game. But to me, they just don't have those girls that are really taking over the game yet. And I think that's something that they need on the offensive end. They need that true, we're hungry, we're trying to show up and show out on the offensive end and take games over. And I just didn't really get that impression from South Carolina. Certainly was happening on the UCLA end. So from my end, I say this a lot. I think Dawn will go to work on this. I think she'll continue to get better and get her team back to where they're capable of playing. But UCLA takes over that number one spot, well deserved. And I think it's really good for that program and for women's basketball that we've got other teams that are now capable of making Final Fours and making big, deep tournament runs. And I think UCLA definitely has proven that they're capable of that this year.
Yeah, and I think UCLA, they had Kiki Rice, a big name for them. She had 11 points. Lauren Betts, big name for them, kind of carried them because Kiki's just coming back the last couple games. Lauren only took 6 shots. She had 11 points, 14 rebounds. London Jones, 5 for 5 from three, as we mentioned. And then Elina Arnisalo from Finland, 13 points, 4 assists, and 1 turnover. She's a freshman. She plays for the Finland national team, right? So she's used to high tempo. She's used to that competitiveness. She's not backing down from a number one team, whether they won it last year or not, because that's just who she is. I just thought she played so stable, so confident, and you really couldn't tell that she was a freshman at all. And last thing on Lauren, she just commanded the paint. There were times she was just full out clearing out the paint, holding her position, showing a hand, calling for a ball. Those are all things, even now, Sid, right? When we're teaching post guard in AAU days, those are things that matter. Stopping when you're open, holding that position, calling for it, getting it, finishing, shooting high. She gets rebounds, she keeps them high. So little things like that. Again, she didn't have to score 20 plus points. She scored 11 and had 14 boards, and her team showed up, balanced ass scoring, and won the game.
Yeah, there you go. Okay, so let's jump into some of these other upsets and big games that just happened. So another one we want to highlight is Iowa State. They were number 8. They lost to unranked Northern Iowa
Mm.
by a score of 87-75. So this is Northern Iowa's first win against a top 10 opponent in program history. And it will go down as a day to remember for senior Maya McDormand.
Sid, this girl, senior, put up 37 points. 37, not like 20, 25, 37.
Yeah, I'm happy to hand that one over to you because I know you were just sitting there going, what is going on?
I was dying. I was like, she's taking my team. Oh. Yeah, I saw the news come across and I was like, wait, what? How did this happen? That's an in-state rival, whether, Iowa State wants to think of it that way or not, right? But, Northern Iowa, excited for it, ready. And then just to have a player put up 37, I think it's going to be a thing we mentioned a couple times about Iowa State. One or two players having games where it's a 30 plus point night, which is crazy. I think we got to take some looks into the defensive end a bit, maybe get somebody locked up. The old put your face in her jersey and don't let her out of your sight. I think we need some of that because, Iowa State has a sophomores, Audie Crooks, 22 points, 10 boards. Addie Brown, 21 points, 12 rebounds. Those are big time numbers. Those are double doubles for sophomore players, but you got to be able to defend or else it doesn't really matter. It completely gets washed out.
Yeah.
Definitely an upset there.
And similar story with the next one. So Nebraska was ranked 21. They lose to Creighton. Nebraska loses the game 74-80. So now Nebraska is ranked 25th in that AP poll. So they're still hanging on there. Creighton had a huge performance from Lauren Jensen, who scored 31 points. So there you go, right? The player
nuts.
that's stepping up. Yeah.
How are these girls just putting up 30s? Like, okay, today's the day.
Offensive machines. Some of these girls for sure. And then Morgan Molly had 18 points. So some big scoring for Creighton. I think Creighton's going to be a team to watch also. They were, to start the season in that top 25, had fallen off with an upset, but I think they can really hang with some of these teams. And I think we're going to be hearing about them down the road. They're capable of making a tournament splash. Do they become one of those Cinderellas that the women's game really hasn't seen a ton of? I think they could.
I'm looking forward to catching some of their games where we can see their defensive intensity as they stop people from scoring 30-40. I just think it's nuts. Like, could you imagine in college, Sid, like somebody just puts up like 30, almost 40 points on you? I mean, Maya Moore probably did. Let's not get it wrong. Like, and Candace Parker probably did as well. But like, I don't know. Some of these are teams you just don't see coming, right? Like,
in-game adjustment. You not have one person on your team who is capable of locking and trailing the entire length of the court. Like you said, nose in the jersey and like getting stops. I think Sonia Citron and Cass Prosper, they were capable of holding Juju Watkins to 24 points. I mean, that's one of the best scorers, if not the best scorer in the country. And then you see some of these other girls, it's just like, how are coaches not calling timeouts specifically to say, stop this one girl from scoring? She's got at that point, 20 points or 25 points. Like, no, they continue to go off and drop 31. I think that's kind of crazy for the game right now.
Nuts. Absolutely nuts. Jumping into our next upset, IU, who's unranked. They were originally in the top 25, but they've fallen off. They beat Baylor, which is an 18 at the time. They won 73-65. This is one of those games, part of the Atlantis tournament that I'm trying to go to. Sid, okay? And Shay Chesky, this girl averages 8.6 points a game, okay, for IU. Forgive me, girl, I've never heard of you, but I know who you are now. You put up 34 points and upset a number 18 team. And keep in mind, Sid Parrish, one of IU's vets, she got injured in the second quarter and hasn't been back in the game since. One of your best players goes down. Next man up, Shay took the call and put up 34. Baylor did shoot 64% from the free throw line as a team, right? So they went 16 of 26 for the game. And at one point, IU was up 15. It's just crazy times, Sid. This is crazy times.
Yeah, the game is evolving and it's so much fun. And it's these big scorers, girls that are capable, like we said, dropping 30 plus. I mean, it's just kind of crazy to watch. The next one is Kansas State losing to Duke. So Kansas State was ranked 9th at the time, Duke ranked 13th. And this is at the Ball Dogs Classic in Nevada. Kansas State loses to Duke 73-62. And I was kind of happy to see this one because I thought it shows how Duke is flipping the script a little bit. Right? They lose to Maryland. They don't look very good against South Dakota State.
South Dakota State, Jackrabbits.
The Jackrabbits. And then they turn around and they upset Kansas State. It shows that they're capable of hanging with some of the best, and I think that speaks to what Kara Lawson's actually teaching on the defensive end. Good for Duke in that one. I was kind of happy to see them upset Kansas State there.
Definitely. So now we're going to jump into some close calls. Not quite an upset, but boy, they could have been. First one up is my Iowa State again, right? Here's Iowa State making a second appearance today. At the time, still ranked 8th. They beat Drake, who's unranked, by a score of 80-78. Here we go again, y'all. Drake's Katie Dinnebear, she had 39 points. I feel like I'm just saying numbers in the 30s and just in shock. Like, this isn't normal. This just doesn't happen. She's averaging 19.8 for the year. And I mean, I was really into this game because I was like, is Iowa State about to get upset again, like twice within a couple days here by unranked? Like that. I was sweating, right? So she hit the tying backdoor layup to make it even at 78 with 0.9 seconds left. They had they ran a nice play, right? Kind of like our old school pen from our AAU days, Sid, where you look one time on the wing and they run a backdoor for a bounce pass. Exactly that. Wide open layup. Wide open. Bill from Iowa, Coach Bill calls a timeout. Where do you think the ball's going, Sid? It's going inside. Yeah.
Oh, to Audie Crooks.
Of course, right? It's going to Audie Crooks. Yeah. So she just sits there, does a screen, and then seals, kicks it right into her, hits it at the buzzer. She finished with 33 points. So, I mean, it's, again, who can just score the most points? No defense necessary. And Iowa State won the game on the last second shot there. Emily Ryan for Iowa State also chipped in with 11 points and 12 assists. Okay, Emily, 12 assists. Like, that's huge. That's a nice double-double. We highlighted that early on in our episodes. If you can get a double-double in points and assists, props.
Yeah, that girl's a assist machine.
Absolutely.
For sure. And then the next one, Louisville beat South Florida and barely beat them, right? Louisville wins 64-60. What a low-scoring game.
From what we've talked about, yes, absolutely.
I mean, maybe these teams actually were locking up and playing some D for once. So Barry and Cochran each had 13 points to help hold off USF in that game. Louisville is just kind of fluttering around the edge of the AP top 25 poll all the time, right? So I think Jeff Walls is hopefully going to be bouncing back a little bit more. We saw him lose to Kentucky on the road in that tough battle. They've got a tough schedule out there, Louisville does. So it'll be interesting to see how much they develop throughout the season. And then one of them we also wanted to highlight was LSU, ranked number 7th. They had a close call against Washington, who's unranked, at the Baja Mar Pink Flamingo Championship. Jealous. So they won by jealous. See, we just got to go to all of these. Like, we're going to pick one next year, and we're just like, that's going to be our Thanksgiving tradition. That'd be so much fun. Anywho, LSU wins that one by 68-67. And to me, LSU really hasn't played anyone yet. I'm very interested to see. They play Stanford coming up here. They do have some good non-conference games out there, but when they hit the SEC, it's going to be interesting to see how they hold their own. We all know that Kim Mulkey is capable of getting that squad ready. So really interested to see once they get challenged, because they've had some close calls throughout the season. Johnson and Morrow both had 19 points. We know both those girls are capable of scoring a ton. And then for the Washington Huskies, Savia Sellers from Washington, she's a sophomore. She had 24 points. So shout out to her for a big game against LSU.
Absolutely. And for the last part of our second quarter, just wanted to highlight today, Friday the 29th, Notre Dame is going to take on TCU at the Cayman Islands Classic. I'm super jealous I'm not there. But again, this is going to be Notre Dame versus TCU. It's going to be a really good game. I don't doubt it, right? Haley Van Lith from TCU has them off to their third 6-0 start in program history. And she's really becoming like a true complete player. At Louisville, she did a ton of shooting and scoring, played a ton of the minutes. At LSU, she was limited minutes, really ran point guard only, distribute the ball, hit open shots when you get it kicked out. But here at TCU, she's just playing free. And as we mentioned before, she got a triple double with like points and assists, like, and was crying. I want her to have a good game, but obviously I'm rocking with Notre Dame. I hope they come out guns hot. I hope they pressure the snot out of everybody, and I hope it's just a really good game. Both teams are undefeated. TCU 6-0 and Notre Dame's 5-0. So definitely looking forward to tuning into that game, and wish I was in the Cayman Islands with them.
Yeah, that's going to be a good one. I'm excited to watch Prince play also. I mean, she's just that big body down low who's capable of stretching out. And I think that's going to be a fun one to watch.
Yeah, I hope Leah King gets on that.
Yeah, right. Okay, so let's jump into the third quarter. It's going to be a quicker quarter here. We've got the SEC ACC Challenge. Wednesday, December 4th, Oklahoma is going to play Louisville. Also on Wednesday, December 4th, Tennessee, my Lady Vols are playing Florida State. This is the first time Tennessee's playing one of those Power 4 conference teams in Florida State in the ACC. So I'm really going to be tuning into this one to see how we hang with some good competition here. So go Lady Vols. And then Thursday, there are 5 star-studded games that are lined up for this SEC ACC Challenge. So we've got Stanford versus LSU, which that one's so interesting now that Stanford's in the ACC. Got to be a good matchup. We've got Kentucky versus UNC. We've got Notre Dame versus Texas. We've got Ole Miss versus NC State and South Carolina versus Duke. I don't even know where we begin to watch all of these games, Becca. We're going to be recording like crazy, and maybe we have to divide and conquer. We're going to have to talk through that one.
Yeah, no, definitely. Maybe we have to do a whole episode just recapping these, because that's going to be 2 days of just digging in. And I want to be able to retain enough information, because there's going to be some really good stuff going down. Obviously, I'm super excited to see the Notre Dame versus Texas game. Pumped as all get out for the Ole Miss versus NC State. Ole Miss has already kind of shown their defensive presence. NC State kind of has some redemption to get back. They've lost the last couple to some ranked teams as well. But pretty excited for the Kentucky versus UNC game. Both pretty equally matched up in the rankings, both kind of coming into their own. I'm always just excited to see Kentucky, Georgia Amore, and Kenny Brooks getting back into the court and kind of how they've grown, right? So when he was at Virginia Tech, he did a really good job of building a team. So excited to see them week over week where they're at now, especially playing a good competition like UNC.
For that game, I think I'm taking Kentucky, over UNC.
Okay.
I think so. I mean, they're both ranked right by each other at 14 and 16.
Yep.
We've seen them play a couple games now, but to your point, I think Georgia Amore is maybe the X factor in that game. If she's hot, if she brings her swagger and is really controlling tempo and doing what she does best, I think she's going to show out in that game. I think this is a big game for her. So I'm going to take Kentucky.
Okay. I agree. Sid, now who do you got for the Ole Miss NC State game?
Oh, man. NC State has not impressed me much this year. Granted, they've played a very tough schedule, especially compared to most people. But I think Ole Miss, defensively, they bring it. I think they play really well together. I think they have a lot to prove still. And they're probably looking at NC State and probably have circled that game on their calendar heading in as one of the big games that they want to try to win. I'm going Ole Miss.
I don't want to just double up, but I agree with you. I completely agree.
Yeah, that's going to be a great game, though. Every single one of these is such a fun matchup. Each of these games, either team is capable of winning.
Yep.
So it's going to be interesting on Wednesday and Thursday this week.
Yeah. SEC, ACC Challenge. We're tuning in and we're excited to watch for sure. Jumping into our fourth quarter, it's our what's in the news topic. What's good? What's going? First off, I just wanted to highlight Unrivaled. That's the 3-on-3 team that Brianna Stewart and Nafisa Collier kind of started. I watched the team selection. I watched the whole YouTube. It was broadcasted, and this was really cool just to see. They had their 6 coaches all in a meeting room. Did you watch this first off?
I didn't. No.
Okay.
So this is news to me. So I like this topic a lot.
So they had them all sitting around in a boardroom. and they had them broken down by, point guard, strong forward, solid post, wings. They had them all grouped together. And all they did was, as a collective 6-person coaching group, they made teams. They didn't know what team they were coaching. They just picked and said who would work well with who hasn't played together. Obviously, there were some people from the actual like unrivaled staff who the fans wanted to see Jewel Lloyd and Brianna Stewart together. So they made some concessions for that. But it was really cool just to see their thinking, right? You have some great coaches there. I'll dig into those here in a sec, but to see their thinking as to why, who should play with who, their strengths, where they could even learn and get better for the upcoming season. It was actually like super cool. I'm glad I watched it. Then after the teams were picked, then the coaches were randomly assigned. They had hats on the table and they were like, and coaching the Mist, Phil Handy. And then so the coaches were technically like drafted to these teams that they all worked together to draft. So they had no idea what team they were coaching at the time. So
That's so cool. I love
I
that.
thought it was really cool. And just again to see their thoughts as to why players would go where, and they don't know if they're coaching that team or not. They had favorites, obviously, they mentioned that, but they didn't share. I just wanted to highlight round 1 of pre-sales tickets for all games that are going to be hosted in Miami, sold out in 30 minutes. Awesome for women's sports.
Absolutely.
Regular season tickets are now available. So, Sid, maybe we should go to Miami, see some of these.
I'm down.
I think so. I think it'd be a
down.
blast. Just real quick, games are played Mondays, some Tuesdays, Fridays, and Saturdays, with the first one starting January 17th, and it goes up until March 17th. So I'm going to quick round robin those coaches and what teams they're going to coach. Phil Handy, I said, he's going to coach the Mists. Teresa Witherspoon's making a comeback. She's going to be the coach of the Vinyls. Nola Henry is going to be the Rose coach. Adam Harrington is the Phantom coach. DJ Sackman is the Lunar Owls coach. And Andrew Wade is going to be the Laces coach. So again, super cool to see some of these well-known names. I mean, obviously most of them, but again, Teresa Witherspoon, right, was at the Chicago Sky. They recently replaced her. So it's great to see her bounce back here and to be part of this unbreaking season and just overall platform.
Yeah, she's such a legend. I was excited to see her on there also. Very cool. I think this is an awesome thing for women's basketball. And we're probably just going to keep you posted on it. How do we not? Because we're going to be following it. So
Absolutely. Absolutely.
And then the second topic for what's in the news is all about Miss Caitlin Clark.
She's back.
Yeah, she's back. And it's just so fun to follow her because, she's young, still in her career, just went through her rookie season, obviously was one of the GOATs in the college game. And now she is joining the Cincinnati ownership group, and they're trying to win the NWSL expansion bid for another team. So Cincinnati is a finalist for the next NWSL expansion team, and Clark is now among those pushing for the city to get a professional women's soccer club. So how cool for women's sports, and how cool to see a female basketball player also being a part of some of that. So the bid is led by the owners of the MLS club, FC Cincinnati, and Clark has added some star power to the group. And boy, has she. That's awesome.
Yeah, absolutely.
So I'm hoping all that works out because I think that'd be really cool for women's sports in general.
Yeah. And if once she expands the soccer club, she'll probably take up something with golf because she's been killing it with that in the off season. So you never know.
She's a multi-sport athlete. We'll just throw that out there, especially with her golf game.
Her talents are endless. Our last topic for in the news is, Sid, there's just been so much hype around women's college basketball. You have the USC crowd, you got the celebs, you got the WNBA, you got players, you got coaches, executives, you have celebrities. Like, in addition to all that hype, what's really cool is college coaches are now getting picked to fill these open coaching spots in the WNBA. Super awesome. I think it's a huge nod of respect as well. These coaches are creating these players for the next level, and I think it's due right that they're one of the main ones that get picked for the job. 2 updates there. Utah's head coach, Lynn Roberts, she's picked to lead the LA Sparks, so she's going to replace Kurt Miller. Kurt Miller is now the GM for the Dallas Wings, so the Dallas Wings spot is currently open. I think he didn't want to take the coaching. He's been around a long time, been coaching all types of players. So I think for him, the GM role was just something different to challenge himself. So props to him. Another college coach that's making the jump to the WNBA is Coach Carl, the longtime Florida Gulf Coast coach. He's been there 23 seasons, and he's going to make the move and start coaching the Atlanta Dream. So two little pieces there of coaches that have transitioned from college to WNBA and said there's still coaching spots open. We got the Connecticut Sun, Dallas Wings, as I mentioned, and the Washington Mystics. We'll definitely be interested to see who picks those up and how long they stay open.
WNBA offseason is upon us, and all the coaching changes and hires are coming through, and that's fun to watch. You had mentioned all the hype around women's college basketball, and Jason Sudeikis has come up a couple of times, right? He was at both the big games this weekend. He followed Iowa a ton last year, was at the Final Four last year. He seems to be at every big women's game. He's a big Sabrina Ionescu fan.
Yep.
I mean, you saw him throughout the WNBA season also. I have a huge theory out there. Oh man. Have you seen Ted Lasso? Did you watch it? Oh my gosh, Becca, you have to watch it. Okay, that's your big homework, but there's a few seasons out there, so it's going to take you longer than the next episode, but you should watch it. It's great. It's phenomenal. It's such a feel good for sports, soccer. But my theory is that this next season 4, it's going to be him coming back to the United States coaching women's basketball. That's my theory. Like, it's such a shot in the dark, but he's been at all these games. I'm like, I think he's studying up. I think he's getting ready to be a women's basketball coach.
Yeah. Maybe I haven't seen the show, but what you're saying now is making sense. I'm putting it together.
Yeah, it's a shot in the dark and a total theory that I have, but wouldn't that be awesome? Gosh, I think it would be great for our game also. So who knows? We'll see. Probably not going to happen, but one can dream, especially the Ted Lasso fan that I am.
But what if it does?
But what if it does? You heard it first here on 28.5 Women's Basketball.
Love it.
And with that, we're going to go ahead and conclude today's episode. And we're going to have to figure out how we're going to get through all these games that are coming up next week. That's going to be something that we'll take away and brainstorm on, because it's going to be star-studded matchups. All those teams are going to be fun to watch next week. So we'll figure that out, and we'll go ahead and conclude today. We'll talk soon, Beck.
Awesome. Can't wait. See you, Sid. That's the 28.5 final buzzer for today's episode. Don't forget to hit follow on your preferred podcast platforms to catch every play-by-play. New episodes drop each week throughout the season.
If you've enjoyed our courtside chat, drop us a review or follow us on our social media accounts. And remember, from females who have played the game, the size of the ball matters.